Hey guys, it's me again, Mojo. I reviewed my video last night on the canners, and I thought it came out pretty good. You know, like I don't cut any stuff together; it's just a first take, and that's it. But I noticed there were a lot of things I wanted to put in that video that I didn't. I try and keep them to about 15 minutes so that nobody loses their patience with me. So anyway, so I'm going to do a part two. One of the things I think I really forgot to talk about on canners was one that I do not have up here on the table, and that's what's called a water bath canner. You've all seen them. I used to have a couple of them. In fact, I think a couple of them are out in my building or my barn. I don't use them for canning, and they're thin, and it's really hard to use them for cooking. So they sort of sit out there. The ones I'm talking about are the blue or black, and they're enameled here on the outside, like blue or black with the specks and stuff on it. Those are old-timey canners. They do recommend you get away from those. The reason's this. So the way canning works is that the food in the jar needs to reach an internal temperature of, once again, I didn't look this up, I think it's 250. But it's got to reach an internal temperature that's high enough to kill all the botulism and little germs that are in there. With the water bath canner, it never gets above the point or the temperature of boiling water. Somebody could probably tell me what that is right off the top of my head. I think it's 180, isn't it? Something like that. Anyway, so the boiling point of water. So it never really, the temperature never really gets high enough to kill all the nasty germs in it. The pressure canners, the way that they work, is that there's water in the bottom of them, and you don't have to fill them up so high. You definitely don't want them above the rim of the lid. But like in this one, your water's going to be up to about yay high. Even though you have them stacked, it's only the water level's only up to here. On this one, your water level's usually about here, because it's not about the water, it's the steam that's created in here. So when you put the steam and together combined with the pressure, it raises the temperature up to a point where it can get the jar hot enough and the contents in there to kill it. So the deal I talked about with the pressure and the time, which is really important, that's why I wanted to make another video here, because I think I left that out enough to make sense. What happens is, so like for meats for us, it's 90 pounds it's 12 pounds at 90 minutes. And what that does is it assures that the jar, it gets 250 degrees all the way to the center of that jar, which is very, very important. So that's the reason you have time plus pressure equals how long you can it. Now meats are dense, unlike vegetables. So meats, you're typically going 90 minutes on a quart. Vegetables, you're typically in a 60-minute range. So that's the way the pressure canner works. Now to go back to the water bath method, you've seen Grandma and all those people do it, and that's the way my grandmother used to can stuff, especially green beans and tomatoes. So the discussion is with green beans and tomatoes, you know, in a water bath canner, what you do is you fill it up with the water. You put your jars in, and the water actually comes up above the rim of the jar, and you boil it. And you boil it. Since I don't do it, I don't know how long it was. I think it was probably like an hour and a half or so. You would boil it in that water, and then you would take it out, and you expected the temperature to reach high enough on the inside. Now, I've seen a lot of exploded jars of tomatoes because the temperature wasn't reached, and then stuff inside caused it to bubble out. And so in the end, these days, they just recommend good old pressure canning. You can't go wrong with that. There's just no way around it. Like I said, I would never water bath can anything these days with these kind of pressure canners. On the other hand, there's another method that some people use, and it's not recommended, and I don't do it. I've seen people do it, and to be honest with you, I've eaten stuff from jars that people have done it, and that's an oven canning method. That's where they put the food in the jars, and then they put it in the oven at 250, 300 degrees for a couple of hours. It's not the same as steam. That dry heat doesn't permeate the jar enough, and it's not recommended at all. I've seen it work, but I'm not doing it. Another way that I've seen people do this, and once again, I have actually eaten sausage that has been done this way. Another way that people will do it, especially sausage meat, is they will take and they will fry up sausage and get a skillet full of grease. They'll put their sausage patties in the jar, put the lid on it, and then turn it upside down. And the grease comes down, and what that supposedly does is the meat's already done, and the grease is in there just to seal it and to cause the pressure to pull the lid down on it. Now, like I said, believe it or not, I had my neighbor, once again, that had been bear hunting in western North Carolina and had gotten bear, and they had used it for bear sausage. Now, I very rarely have I ever had a chance to eat that, and everybody else was eating it, and nobody was falling out over puking their guts out. So I went ahead and tried it, and it was dadgum good too, but that's the way that they had preserved it, so you're not going to see me do it. Another thing is, even with pressure canners, in some instances there are things like really thick gravy, well, not gravy, but really thick preserves, and like if you take and pack, I'll give you an example. If it were hamburger meat and you just packed raw hamburger meat as tight as you could get it in here, that means that the heat has a hard time getting to the center. It takes a little bit longer. So, I do hamburger. I do it a little bit different than just packing. I don't use the raw pack method for hamburger. I actually do take the hamburger and brown it just a little in a skillet before I put it in here to get most of the fat out of it, and then I'll put it in here and can it. Chicken breast, I use the raw pack method. I do not, well, I've done it a couple of different ways, but it used to be that I take, 2 whole chicken breasts, boneless, skinless chicken breasts, and just stick the breast in here. Some of those breasts, it's dang Dolly Parton breasts. So, sometimes they don't fit well in here if you just leave them whole. So I've gotten where I quarter the breast and put them in here, but I don't pack them in. I just loosely put them in there, and just bring it up to the about right there, not all the way up into the head space. You don't want to do that, and then fill it up with broth. And I've never had a problem. It cans them perfect every single time, and that's just the way I do it. Like I said, a lot of this is a little bit on the basic side, and just look at the other videos out there. You can Google, canning with All-American Canners or canning meat, and they'll sit in the kitchen and show you how to do it. Now, I may later on, but that's just not my style right now. The other thing I did wanted to re-mention really quick yesterday, I was vague on it just a little bit, but the most important part of these canners are these pressure dials, especially on this one, as I had said in the first video. You just take it to the extension agent, and they can test the gauge to make sure that if it says it's at 15 pounds, that it's really at 15 pounds. It's not so much about worrying that the gauge is too high. So, for example, the worry isn't so much that if the gauge is wrong, you're going to blow the canner up. That's not the worry. The worry is that if the gauge says that it's 12 pounds and it's really 6 pounds, then you're not cooking it to the right temperature in here, and that can lead to some problems. That does bring up another thing. So for me, I keep saying, well, here in western North Carolina, in the foothills, we are at 12 pounds for 90 minutes for meats. I actually go over that a little bit. There's nothing wrong with, I would rather be over than under. So typically on this one, my 15-pound mark's right here at about, what's that? About 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock on the gauge. So I'll let that needle creep toward 15 pounds and not really worry about it. This one, like I said yesterday, this one's pretty self-regulated. So, you know, I'll not do my sound effects again. But once you get that bobbing, well, yeah, I will. Then that's good. Then you're fine. It pretty much regulates itself. Other thing real quick that I did not cover yesterday was, dang, I can't even remember. There was something else that I wanted to go over on this that I cannot remember. Oh well, I'll tell you what. So that's, once again, these are wonderful instruments of food preservation. I love them to death. I actually went back and looked at pricing, and pricing wise, I found several of these for $100 used on eBay. Like I said, this bad boy right now I think is going for about $600. So you know, if you've got the money and you got something to put this one on, go ahead and get it. But like I said, when you're canning with this one, you're having to can a lot of meat or a lot of whatever you're doing. I've got 2 of them, so I never use both of them. I probably need to sell one of them. Anyway, All American Canners, thanks everybody for watching once again. This is probably the only and last one I'll do on canners. I think I've covered everything. If you got any questions or anything, feel free to ask me. Email me, once again, mojoredneckreview@gmail.com is my address. Mojo Redneck Review on YouTube, and that is it. And I certainly appreciate it. Looking forward to putting some more videos out there. Like and subscribe and pass it on. Thank you so much. GoPro, stop recording.